Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. Yeah, I'm back, and with another entitled parent encounter. I seem cursed of this sort of thing, because almost the exact situation repeated itself. I was traveling for work again and cutting things close to be home for Christmas. This time it happened on a layover on my way home. My next flight wasn't to be for a few hours, so I did my usual of finding an airport cafe and plugging in my personal laptop so I would not run the battery dry. This time I was playing Castlevania Legacy of Darkness. I really enjoy playing as Henry, even though his quest is so much shorter because he actually uses a gun. I had to wear headphones to avoid disturbing anyone. But eventually I felt a small hand tugging at my pant leg. It was a small boy, probably a bit younger than the one from the last time I posted. He pointed out the bright red game controller I was using and asked what it was. He thought it was for an Xbox. Internally, I was mildly offended by that, being the retro Nintendo fan I am. But only a complete jerk would be angry at a kid for not knowing about something that existed before they were born. Plus, it's not like all people in my day were Nintendo fans. Yeah, I was one of those guys who got in console debates. And even though I never got a chance to really click with the Super Nintendo, I still defended it against the Sega Genesis. Though not on a console wars level, I let my friends do those debates. Back to the situation in the airport, I was tired and not in the mood to be bothered. So I politely asked the kid to please go back to his parents and leave me be. He just stared at me like what I said didn't register. So I asked again, and when that didn't work, I asked a nearby employee for help and a coffee refill. The employee found the kid's mother nearby and ushered the boy back to her. Moments later, I was being confronted by an EM dressed in all black white while red in the face like a bad newspaper headline and was demanding to know what my problem was. I can't just play video games in public and expect to not attract the attention of children. I sighed because I knew exactly where this was going. Not my first rodeo, after all. But in most other situations like this, I usually just get a dirty glare from the EPF. But after the incident in which an EM destroyed my laptop, I was much more on guard. I stood up and told her it was not my job to entertain her child. It's not the job of the cafe employees or other people in the cafe employees or other people in the cafe either. It was her job. Either bring something for her kid to game on or find a way to entertain him herself. I don't care, but leave me out of it. She acted extremely offended and called me a giant man baby. I told her that was exactly the sort of thing a Karen would say, which only angered her further. Soon the same employee was back and tried to break things up. She politely asked us both to calm down, but the EM refused and said I should be thrown out for insulting her. I finally had enough and said I sued the last person like her who demanded I entertain their son because they broke my computer and got arrested. And there are cameras all around us to see who started what. So, go ahead, try me, the EM started huffing, and I calmed down enough to sit back down and act polite enough to say, please, just leave me alone. The employee sided with me and asked her to just calm down and leave me be. The EM huffed and dragged her kid away by the hand while he cried about the games. For a good while, she was repeatedly glaring at me. Her son played on what I assume was her phone, which meant she had nothing to do herself. But then they left and later came back with a coloring book and a fresh pack of crayons I think she grabbed at the overpriced gift shop. And her son played with that till it was time to go. This isn't quite over, though. That EM was somehow on the same flight as me, which made the EM target me during boarding. She made sure to be as close to me as possible, and her little boy had nasty gas, so he kept farting right in my direction. But I stayed silent, and I kept my sunglasses on so she could not see where I was looking. She tried acting smug-looking back at me, but the smugness was short-lived as I made sure to act completely indifferent and silent to not show any irritation. Someone else called her out on her kids farting too, and he had a short argument with them about it. She later seemed to look like she sucked on a lemon as she saw I got to board before her to go to business class, and she had to board for coach a few minutes later. She mouthed a few as she went by my aisle seat. I was off the flight before the EM, so I didn't see her again when leaving the airport. When my wife picked me up, I told her what happened. She rolled her eyes and called me a Karen magnet. Edit. Yeah, my wife told me no one would believe me if I posted this here. She's one of the most down-to-earth people I've ever met. To answer why I was in the cafe and not the lounge. I go where there's a free power outlet. Plus, I wanted some good coffee. Why didn't I just explain about the games and N64 controller to the kid? Because every time I've done that with an EP's kid, they don't seem to lose interest. I've been asked by kids many times while emulator gaming on my laptop, and they rarely ever care that the games are over 20 years old. They're more concerned with the fact I have games when they're bored and have nothing else to do. And when my wife called me a Karen magnet, she wasn't joking. Most of the people who ask me about N64 gaming on my laptop just have a few questions and leave me alone. Then there's the ones who don't leave me alone. I've had numerous similar incidents in various places, but most of the time the EP takes their kid and back off, and the incident in which a Karen EM broke my laptop left me with an even shorter fuse for those people. Call me a giant man baby if you want, but I just wanted to relax and play my games in peace while waiting for my flight. Is that so wrong? So, this past Christmas, my missus and I purchased one of our 9-year-old son's Santa gifts from a certain UK sports retail company that also has many stores here in Ireland as well. It was a football rebounder, kind of like a trampoline that you kick the ball at, and it bounces back to you. Anyway, we purchased it from their Irish website and thought nothing more of it. A few days go by and we get a notification from a certain brown uniformed courier company that there are customs charges due on something. And as you can imagine, we bought many things for the kids, so we had to double-check what we've ordered, and we didn't have anything left that was being imported, so we naturally assumed it was a scam. So I told the wife to call the company and find out who shipped it, and it was a different courier company based in the UK. After a bit of digging and investigating, it turns out that it's our rebounder. They had shipped it from the UK via a local carrier to the brown uniformed guys to deliver to us. Now, my wife and I are both on disability, so an additional charge of almost year 50 when you're both already on a fixed income is harsh, especially at Christmas, so I told her to pay it and I deal with the retailer. The first day I called, I had to call 3 times, being stuck on hold for at least 20 minutes each time. But I was patient and polite because I've worked in a call center before, so I knew those people are only doing their job. But I asked to speak to a manager and was promised a call back each time. That never happened. The second day was quite similar. The third day I was starting to get annoyed, so called back, waiting even longer on hold, and finally wasn't taking this crap any longer. I told the rep that all I wanted was the year 50 back because our consumer rights in Ireland dictate that a person must be informed of any additional charges on a purchase, at the very latest by the final checkout screen. And in this case, there was nothing to show that, and I could easily replicate that issue by putting the same item in my basket and going all the way to the checkout screen again, and there was nothing saying we'd have to pay import charges. The rep was indifferent to the situation but tried to help, and what he said sent me over the edge. He offered me a measly year 20 gift voucher to use on their website, but more importantly, he read a statement to me. He said, "We advise our customers that there may be DDU charges, delivery duty unpaid." An example: customs charges on any item that gets shipped outside of the UK. Then I asked him where it states this information, and he paused and said he didn't actually know. I said, "Well, I know one thing. It doesn't say it anywhere on this transaction because I've checked and because this is a violation of my consumer rights. I'm going to give your company one last chance to make this right. Have your manager call me within the next 60 minutes or I'm going to post this entire debacle on LinkedIn and link every senior officer in your company." Then I hung up the phone and waited. Yet, again, no call. The next day I went on LinkedIn and followed through on my promise. I created a post detailing what they had done by sticking us with hidden charges and that they were ignoring our requests for a manager and everything they said and did. Then I tagged every senior officer at that company, from the regional managers through the European directors, all the way to the CEO, and I shamed them for how they operate their company. This, ladies and gentlemen, was now an act of war. Shortly after I posted that, I noticed that they took down the item from their website in an attempt to hide this, but they must have thought in a simple tone that doesn't understand how the internet works. They didn't realize that when you search for rebounder on their site, that it shows the item in question, so I took a screenshot of that, then another of the item page that was now missing. But then I did a Google Cache search for the same page and found a version from 2 days prior, happily showing the item. Then I added a comment to my original post highlighting how they were trying to hide it with the evidence and trolling them for their heinous behavior, especially at Christmas. Then I tagged and shamed all the senior officers again, and at this point, it was really starting to get some attention. Not only publicly, but 3 people in incognito mode viewed my profile. I wonder who they could have been. So naturally, I took a screenshot of the 3 mysterious visitors listed on my profile and did the same thing, commented on my own post highlighting it and trolling them for their incompetence. The next morning, I got a call from a senior exec at their head office in the UK, practically licking my boots with apologies, asking what she can do to make this right. I told her I originally only wanted my Euro 50 back as it wasn't fair, nor even legal, that I had to pay it, But since I had to go to such lengths to get their attention, now I wanted my euro 50 back, a full refund on my entire purchase, and I wanted to keep the product. That was the only thing that would make this go away. She asked for a couple of hours to fix it, and I said, okay. About an hour later, I got another call from her again, apologizing. She asked for my PayPal address where she sent the euro 50. Then she refunded the whole purchase, and she let us keep the product. Obviously, I thanked her for her help because at that stage I was just happy it was over, but I'll be screwed if I let anyone walk all over my family, even if they are a 58 million annual company. The most of the story here is don't take bull from anyone. I may be just one man, but my son's view of Santa is far more valuable to me than the opinion of some retail chain that doesn't care about its customers or how it operates ethically. I think I've mentioned in my previous posts about my time in the travel plaza about the lack of common sense in regards to management of the building. From a first-person experience, I can say that people higher up on the ladder often tend to overlook those in positions of sanitation and maintenance, when they often fail to realize that without janitors and repair workers, they would have to condemn the building. Let me first start off this list by saying that I heard one of the managers tell me that the utility department doesn't make any money for the plaza, so they will pull new hires trained to clean into the food service areas when needed, which was all the time. Men were given the job title of porter and women were given the job title of matron. It was standard for each to clean the specific restroom, but it was hard to hire matrons as they would often be reassigned to the fast food counter or coffee shop while still being listed down as utility staff on the schedule. I think this was to pass some sort of company or safety compliance. But what made it worse was that meant the women's bathroom rarely got cleaned. So management came up with a bright idea to have the porters, who are males, clean the women's restroom, often during periods of heavy traffic. And the line was long as we had to close half of the bathroom to get everything cleaned. I suppose by this point in the post you can see how bad the management of the plaza was. Another issue the management wasn't keen on tackling was the cardboard issue. If you've worked in any place that serves food, then you know how much cardboard a business will discard. At one time, we used to have 2 dumpsters for cardboard and plastics. But as always, the truckers would use them as normal trash dumpsters, so the company took them away for having too much trash. And what did the plaza do as a response to losing their cardboard disposal? They simply told us in utility to put everything in the trash compactor, which ended up causing it to fill up faster. And this wasn't the type that had a truck come to empty it on site. This was a big compactor that had to be taken to the landfill to be emptied. This caused an excess buildup of trash during the busy days, and the cardboard made things worse. Bathroom flooding was always a problem too. In the men's room, some of the urinals wouldn't stop flushing sometimes, and the management would often just tell us to close them and not get to the issue for a few months. Same thing goes for the toilets too, and it didn't help that some customers would try flushing plastic bottles, underwear, and other stuff down the drains. Now for context, due to the cheap construction, the men's bathroom was smaller than the female's bathroom, so a few closed stalls were often a big problem. I remember at one point a car hit the side of the building and knocked a urinal loose, which took a month or 2 before someone came to fix it. I mentioned in a previous story that the AC unit caught fire twice during the time I worked there. I wasn't lying. Both times we of the utility group had to block off entrance to the plaza building until the firefighters and police did an inspection. Thankfully it was very minor, but the amount of smoke was astounding. Ironically, the heaters never failed, but they always seemed to be running even in warm weather. Of course, when the pizza parlor reopened and I joined, the management treated that as a low priority to the point where they avoided checking in to see how we were doing. Apparently, they also took issue with us collecting tips because it would take vital tips away from the girls in the coffee shop, which didn't make sense as the fast food counter also had a tip jar. No one ever came over to train us properly on how to do certain things. We were even down to using only one oven as the second one didn't get hot enough to cook the pies. The only good thing about working there was we could eat any pizza that didn't come out right. Come to think of it, after I joined the pizza staff, I didn't get a break as there weren't enough people to cover. Even after the pizza parlor closed down, I wasn't able to get a break when I joined the fast food counter, since by that point the staff was low. This wasn't long after a new company bought out the previous one, so that also contributed to the accelerated decay of things. That also explains why every time I asked them for information on how to move up in the chain of command, they would tell me to ask again later. One manager said that he was the wrong person to ask. The only time the management would get involved in things was if we were really short-staffed and assist themselves, or they would push us hard when they expected an inspection, which they told us to make sure and not say anything, even going so far as to make sure and not say anything, even going so far as to make sure utility was busy with tasks. When the inspectors came around, these are just some of the primary examples of why management wasn't so kind to the utility department of the plaza. I'll get into more specific examples at a later date. For now, I'll just sign off with this piece of advice. Utility work is actually one of the most noble professions out in the world. Sure, food makes the cash, but those who do the cleaning and fixing make sure the place is able to serve the food safely. So there I was, slinging drinks at Smokey's Pub. Just another day in the life of a broke college student trying to make rent. My name's Alex, by the way. Not that it matters, but people seem to like to know these things. This one Tuesday, this lady, let's call her Karen because it's always a Karen, right? Comes in and immediately starts eyeballing me like I just ran over her cat. I'm thinking, great, another high-maintenance customer. Little did I know, this was going to be one for the books. Karen orders a mocha Frappuccino or some fancy crap like that. So I whip it up thinking I've nailed it because, it's a coffee shop and coffee is basically my lifeblood at this point. I hand it to her with my best customer service smile, and what does she do? She scoffs and goes, "There's something wrong with this. I can just feel it." Now, normally I'd be chill about it. Customer's always right? But Karen wasn't having any of it. She shoves the cup back into my hands like I just handed her a cup of melted crayons. I give her the benefit of the doubt, make her another one. Maybe I screwed up. Who knows? Hand it over with a hope this is better. She takes a sip, looks me dead in the eyes, and goes, "Are you trying to poison me? There's something in here, I'm telling you." At this point, I'm thinking she's lost her marbles. I check the drink. Nothing. I taste it myself just to be sure. It's a damn good Frappuccino if I do say so myself. "Ma'am, I'm not sure what you're talking about." "It's fine," I say, trying to keep my cool. But Karen ain't having it. She demanded I make her another one. So here I am on round 3 of the most high-stakes Frappuccino of my life. I even let the manager taste it. He gives me the nod like, "You're good, dude?" I present it to Karen with all the grace of a gymnast, and she looks at it like it just insulted her ancestors. Before she can say anything, I notice this little smirk on her face, like she's got some grand revelation. And then she points to the top of the cup and goes, "There, right there. What's that?" I'm looking, squinting, trying to figure out what the hell she's talking about. And then I see it, a tiny piece of coconut, in a Frappuccino. Who does that? Now I get it. Some people have allergies. But Karen didn't have an allergy. She just had an attitude. I'm trying to explain this to her, but she ain't having it. "You're trying to kill me." "I knew it," she screeches, and before I can blink, she pokes me right in the eye. My freaking eye! I'm holding my eye half-blinded, and she's still going on about how I'm the worst barista in the world. Meanwhile, half the pub is watching this drama go down. But here's the thing about me. I'm not one to take things lying down. I stumble to the back, holding my throbbing eye, and grab my phone. My eye is tearing up like crazy, but I managed to dial 911. 911? What's your emergency? The dispatcher asks. I'm like, yeah. So there's this lady at the pub. She poked me in the eye because she found coconut in her Frappuccino. Can you believe it? Coconut? The dispatcher is surprisingly calm about it, probably dealing with weirder stuff every day. They send a cop over, and by this time Karen has moved from yelling at me to yelling at me to yelling at everyone about the coconut conspiracy. The cop arrives, takes statements, and even he's looking at Karen like she's a few fries short of a Happy Meal. Eventually they haul her off, and I'm left nursing my wounded eye, thinking, all this over coconut. Word gets around the pub about the coconut incident, and soon I'm getting high fives from regulars and sympathetic pats on the back from coworkers. Even the manager who witnessed the whole thing gives me a bonus for having to deal with Psycho Coconut Lady. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. Hey everyone. I appreciated all the support I got on my last post about my neighbor Richard. I wanted to give you all an update, but it might be a little disappointing, unfortunately. I called the office and told them about the situation, and they told me they were going to call him and tell him to not interact with me and to make any complaints through them. This seemed to improve things at first, but he unfortunately decided to start banging on the ceiling whenever he felt I was being too loud. At first, it wasn't that bad. 1 or 2 smacks randomly, easy enough to ignore. Like in the first post, several smacks occurred when I was laying in bed. Last night, he escalated it. It was around 10:11 p.m. I was walking around my apartment a little. I had a bad cord and I was trying to find a different cord to replace it. He started smacking again. I ignored it, but he kept doing it and was slowly getting more aggressive. It was starting to freak me out a bit. At this point, I wasn't even moving anymore. I was just sitting at my desk. Then, he got pissed and full on, like full force, punched the ceiling. I think I counted 7 times in a row. It was bad enough to make the place shake. I was really scared at this point, so I did what my mom and most of Reddit told me to do. I called the police. Unfortunately, they weren't very helpful. Here's how the conversation went. Me. C, cop. C, has he threatened you in any way? No, not directly. He's been told to not knock on my door, now he's being really aggressive with hitting the ceiling. C-E, I can't do anything if a crime has not been committed. M, the ceiling hitting is really scaring me, and he's admitted to watching me leave and come back before. C, things like this are part of apartment living. Him watching you is likely just him trying to figure out the source of the noise. I can talk to him if you want, but at that point, he will know you called the police and that might make things worse off for you. I'm not saying you are making noise, but I've had to speak to my upstairs neighbors before too. You don't live below anyone, so it can be hard to understand. I do live below someone too, and I hear noises sometime. C, then you know what it's like. No, they make sounds, but it isn't bad, and I just ignore it. C, like I said, I've had to speak to neighbors before too. Yeah, but your neighbors were probably actually making noise. At this point, I started to cry. Unfortunately, it just happens to me sometimes when I'm really stressed. I was just trying as hard as I could to keep it together to be able to speak. C, I know things like this can be frustrating. I can talk to him if you want. No, you just told me that would be a bad idea. C, I never said that. At that point, I just wanted the cop to go away. I told him to leave, but asked him to let the record show that I felt unsafe in my own home. This morning, I contacted the office again and had a very interesting conversation. They told me they had spoken to him and had indeed told him to make any complaints through them and not talk to me. They also said that him watching me leave wasn't meant to make me feel threatened and that he never intended to follow me, but was an observation he brought up when I had tried to tell him I wasn't home when he was complaining about sound. I told the office that he had been complaining about sound from when I wasn't there, that I had been gone for at least half the month of December. Well, apparently he told them I had had a friend over, and she had likely been making the noise when I was gone. Are you effing kidding me? Claire was there for a single night? He is legit making up stories in his head now to make things make sense? The office is trying to be a middleman in this situation, which I guess I understand, but it is aggravating since I know I'm not making loud banging sounds. I told the office about my current theory that the loud banging sounds are the heating system coming on. It would make sense for the heat to be more likely to come on when I enter the building and let in cold air. Correlation does not equal causation. The good news is that he is not allowed to be banging on the ceiling like he's been doing. The office will be telling him to stop, and if he does it again, I will report him every single time. I will be keeping a log of everything. Sorry that this update probably isn't very satisfying. I'm very tired and shaken up, and the police department isn't helpful. It's a very lonely feeling. I understand everyone trying to be impartial, but it just makes me feel so defeated, like nobody believes me. Update. I wrote this all out yesterday, and in the time it took me to write it, he banged on the ceiling again despite the landlord telling him that isn't allowed. I called them again and they said they would do something, not sure what though. Oh, this is gonna be a long one, so please bear with me. Throughout my childhood, I have suffered from physical and verbal abuse from my father. I think it started when I was 8 years old. My father would hit me whenever he felt like it, such as when I refused to go to the park with him and when I refused to wear a dress. Those happened when I was 9 or 10. Most of the time, he would hit me when I lost a match in my sport. Not going to specify. He would usually hit me using a cane or just throw stuff at me. He would also call me a useless piece of garbage most of the time. I was basically forced into this sport because it was something he couldn't do when he was a child. I never liked this sport, but he even wanted me to go professional. This changed when I was 12 and my parents got a foreign coach to live with me in an apartment and coach me full-time. I pulled out of middle school and only did online classes, which really effed my studied up. But worst of all, this coach made 2 years of my life a living hell. I would train 7 hours a day, 7 days a week. In addition, he would abuse me physically and verbally every single day. Once I went to a tournament with him and lost a match. He slapped me in the face multiple times till I started bleeding and kicked me on the floor. My stomach hurt so much I couldn't eat. My parents knew about all the abuse, but didn't do crap because my dad wanted me to climb the ranks in my sport. After 2 years, I got a pretty decent rank and the coach went back. My dad started treating me much better. The abuse got much less and he started trying to change for the better. One thing that I'm furious about is that I have a brother 9 years younger than me and he is living my dream life. When I was his age, my schedule would be filled with activities that I couldn't be back home till 8 p.m. Now he finishes school at 1 and watches TV throughout the day. My parents doesn't send him to activities because they figured out it was pretty useless and didn't help me much. It was as though I am a guinea pig to them. My dad is much calmer now, so my brother won't have to go through any of the crap I went through, and this makes me so sick. The fact my brother is an absolute asshat does not make it any better. He would yell at my mom and get whatever he wants. Once I started playing video games to have a bit of fun and asked my mom if she could give me $5 to purchase something in it. She said I was addicted and should stop. My brother asked her if he could spend $50 on Roblox and she agreed. Honestly, what the hell? My dad would buy my brother a ton of toys on his birthday, but I remember my dad didn't get me presents last time because he already did so much for me. I asked my dad once if my brother is going to go through the same path as me, but Dad said that he was old and tired. My brother should just play casually whilst going to school to get a scholarship, something I always wanted. But Dad only gave me the option to play the sport full-time or go to school full-time. I chose to play because I knew he would be mad. My mom is the only one that treats me nice and I love her, but she has been only dedicating her time to my brother and I feel so lonely now. I don't have friends because I don't go to school. I was always the straightest student, but now I don't even know if I can survive in college because of this. Sick fantasy my dad wanted me to fulfill. We are considered upper middle class in my country, and my dad owns a few luxury cars. My dream was always to get into Ivy League school, and one of the coaches from Columbia University contacted me to say they were interested. I was so happy and told my dad, but he said I should try to get a scholarship instead. But he could afford Porsches. That absolutely broke me. My tipping point was when I asked my mom to go out for lunch to spend time with her, but she obviously had to bring my brother along. He ordered fried chicken, but due to his rotten, spoilt mouth, he needs to spit the fat out. So he was biting the chicken and constantly trying to spit the fat out. I got so mad I was about to punch him in the face. Guys, I can do this anymore. My brother is living the life I've never had with a sane father and a mom that loves him so much. I need advice. Should I just go to a college in the U.S. and just never return? How do I deal with this hate and jealousy I have towards my brother? But damn, getting a green card is tough. I by no means think I live an extraordinary life. However, with the childhood I got and with my abusive parents, I think I turned out pretty great. 20 female, I am a pre-med student at the best university in the country. I manage full-time school with a casual part-time job volunteering on campus extracurriculars and do research on campus. I'm part of a lab. When you take a step back, most people at my school do more or less the same thing. As a result, I'm stressed, depressed, and barely managing to balance my social life because of the competitive environment, though I try my best. My mom, she was engaged at 19, I believe married at 20, had me at 21. Back home, she went to college for psychology. Honestly, I always thought that was pretty impressive, but she cut her studies short because she wanted to marry a man who would handle the money, an example. My dad, which I respect, they ended up migrating to the West. She ended up needing to work anyways and works a monotonous white-collar job now. I would like to add, my mom is gorgeous. People tell her that openly, men and women. At some point she was built like a Victoria's Secret model. She cooks, I barely eat out, and she works full-time. My mom, in other words, is a superwoman. Though in the sense of being a mother, when it comes to encouragement and love, my mom has never really been one. She brings in money and she cooks, and I have always had a roof over my head, for which I am so very grateful. But she's a horrible person. To strangers, she's great, but to me, honestly, my babysitter growing up was more of a mother figure. To sum up my childhood, she bullied me about my weight starting from age 6, though I suspect it took an eating disorder to get to her size. She bullied me about my appearance in general, putting significant stress on this far more than my academics. If I would get a gift, say a dress or sweater, from a friend or family and it's a size too big instead of alteration, she'd just take it. She'd buy me shirts just to take them and say, never mind, they look better on me. I had an anorexic friend in middle school and she would constantly compare me to her, saying, why can't you be pretty like her? Didn't want to tell people her daughter was in a manly field like engineering and back me into the medical career path, not caring about the fact that Canada has the hardest med school admissions in the world. Now, my current life with my mom. I go to the hardest, most academically rigid school in the country for pre-med. I range comfortably from low 80s, low 90s. This term I got only 80s. She questioned me about my horrible grades. My mom couldn't even tell you the courses I was taking or the grading scale my university uses. I truly do not understand why she cares so much about the end result and not nearly as invested in the process. Now, the part that bothers me the most, that is affecting my mental health the most. My mom equates all the stuff I'm doing for medical school, as mentioned in the beginning, school, work, etc., to be my social time. I was able to snag a highly coveted on-campus job, and my mom will roll her eyes when I inform her I won't be home immediately after class because I have something that day. She's obsessive about me coming home immediately after my classes end. I have extracurriculars, lab meetings, work shifts, and so I am on campus a lot. I don't even study on campus, though. I've made my room a spectacular place for me to study. But my mom will roll her eyes if I need to meet the professor who runs my lab, or if I need to go in for work. Make comments about how I'm out too much. Then when I mentioned actual social plans, these happen once in a blue moon BC. No one here has the time. She will say, "Why? You've had enough socializing." I'm 20 years old and I'm planning to buy my own car soon, but she will tell me I am not allowed to go visit a cute little cafe with my friends after I'm done with class. I remember there was a huge themed pub night on campus once. She knew way in advance, and honestly work was an excuse for me to go, to film some shots of the event. Everyone I knew was basically going. I got all dressed and everything, and my mom looked me up and down and said, "You know what? Aren't you tired? Don't go?" And it wasn't out of awe. "You must be so tired, my amazing, studious girl." It was literally, "I do not want you to go." I mean, I went, obviously. But it wasn't until recently that I figured maybe she was just jealous. She got married way too young. Even my grandparents, her own parents, think she should have continued her education, regardless of her marriage or not. But I felt recently that she says these things out of spite and jealousy because of what she missed out on marrying my dad. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences, opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.